We finished talking about arrays, and now we're going to talk about 2D arrays. And 2D arrays are just that. It has two dimensions. So instead of just a single list, you have rows and you have columns. It comes out like a little table looking thing. Okay, our columns still start at 0 and our rows still start at 0. And we have two index values, one for the row position and one for the column position. So this particular value would be row 1, which is right here, and column 3, which is right here, would be the 6. So let's practice that. If I've got int numbers equal to 3, 4 is equal to these values, what is at position numbers 1, 1? Okay, I'm hoping you said 5 instead of 11 because remember we're starting at 0, so 5 is at position 1, 1. Okay, what is at position 2, 3? Remember it's rows first, so 0, 1, 2, and column 0, 1, 2, 3. That's going to give us our 4 over here. Okay, what is at position 1, 2? Row 1, column 2, that's going to be the 21. You can initialize your array using initializer list, or you could leave it blank just like you did with the array and just put a semicolon here. Both ways will work. This just automatically assigns the values instead of leaving it blank. So here's an example of a initializer list. I'm using a character of rows and columns to represent a tic-tac-toe game. So they've got a couple of X's and O's in and a couple of spaces. If I wanted to display this tic-tac-toe grid, I could do so using for loops. Now, if I'm just iterating over a single array, then I'd use one for loop. But since I'm iterating over two-dimensional arrays, I need two for loops, one for the rows and one for the columns. So what this will do is it will display and iterate across. So it will first display 0, 0, then 0, 1, 0, 2. Then if you look over here, I have an end line between the two, so it will come down here and iterate over here and then over here. So now if you have the outer loop as rows and the inner loop as columns, that's how it's iterating. It's iterating across. If you were to switch that and put columns as the outer loop and rows as the inner loop, then it would iterate down like this. So it just depends on how you want it to iterate. Okay, another thing we're going to talk about is characters. So in strings you have double quotes to represent your string. But with a single character, you use single quotes, and that just specifies, hey, this is a single character. Couple of escape sequences you have. We've already discussed this /n, that does an inline character, a new line. You can have a /t to put a tab in there, or if you wanted to display a single quote, you could do a /single quote, or a /double quote will display a double quote. You'd put those within your quotes as far as your string, just like you do like the inline character. You also do a beep. A beep makes your computer beep, obviously. Stick that into a for loop that goes 1,000 times to annoy people, right? Okay, if you include C-type, you have a couple of character functions that you can use. So here I've got character CH is equal to a Y. Then I could say, well, is that a space? That's not a space because it's a Y, so that would return back false. Is it uppercase? No, it's lowercase, so that would return back false. Is lower? That would return back true because the letter lowercase y is a lowercase y. Is digit would return back if it's a digit or not, like a 7 or something like that. Is blank? I don't think that will do a space. I think that will do any kind of blank character, like an inline character, but I'm not sure. I'll have to check in that one. Then if it's an alpha or if it's alphanumeric, I guess. So if it's a letter or number, and so on and so forth. So extra character functions you could use if you need. Now strings have double quotes. You can also have an empty string. So here I have string str equals basically nothing, because there's nothing in the quotes. So an empty string is valid. Now there's two different types of strings. Well, there's actually a lot of different types of strings, but the only ones you're required to know in this class are these two. There's a C string, which is a character array, or there's actually a string data type. This one's a little bit newer. It wasn't around when I was learning C++, and I love it. It's fantastic. It's the one I recommend you use. However, there are times when you may need to use a character array to represent a string. So if you ever sending information back to the operating system, that would require a character array. Not that you will ever need to do that in this class, but just so you are aware that that exists. Character array. I could set this character array equal to Karen. You want to make sure your character array is larger than or the same size as the value you have. Actually, it has to be one larger at least, because a character array by default, it has this null terminator to tell it when it ends. So if I wanted to figure out the length of this, I have to, or size this, I have to leave one extra space in there for that null terminator, because that's how C strings ends, with these null terminators. Preferably, I would use strings though. You can declare strings in several ways. So here I have string S1 and in parentheses I put my string, or I have string S2 equals whatever you're setting it equal to. This one initializes a string but doesn't give it a value. I can use the equal sign to see it to assign. So I'm going to set string 3 equal to string 1. I can also concatenate strings. I can't concatenate numbers, but I can concatenate other strings using the plus equal operator and the plus sign. I just couldn't do +7 in here because it won't allow me to add in a number, just another string. String input, that we've done this before, do a cin statement for their name or something like that. Alternatively, you can do a getLine statement. The difference is a cin statement will read all the way up to a space or an enter. So you couldn't do like an entire sentence with this particular cin statement. You can with this. This will get the entire line all the way. They could put in a whole sentence and press it. Once they hit enter, it will store all of that information into that name, spaces and all. So getLine. getLine's a handy one. The trouble is you can't really mix getLine and cin because it will ignore the next character if you do a cin statement, because it doesn't read that endline character, whereas this does. So you want to watch out for that. You might have to do like an ignore statement or an extra cin to read that endline statement. Iterating over strings, you can iterate over strings just like using a for loop, so this would display every character. You can use str.at to access the character, or you could just use str and do like array notation. Both of those ways work. And that will just display one character at a time per line. Okay, and that is it. Catch us in the next video and we will show you a no-brainer that will demonstrate either arrays or 2D arrays or something. We'll give you a no-brainer. Hold on for the next video.